Have you ever walked past someone without realizing they were carrying the hardest day of their life? Sometimes, one small moment can change two lives forever. This is the story of a lonely chief financial officer who had everything money could buy but almost nothing that truly mattered. Then one ordinary trip to a grocery store led him to a struggling single mother making a heartbreaking choice no parent should ever have to make. What happened next surprised everyone, including him. It wasn't just about helping a stranger. It became the beginning of a journey that proved kindness has the power to heal broken hearts, restore hope, and change lives in ways no one can predict. Before we begin, if you enjoy heartwarming stories that remind us there is still goodness in the world, please subscribe to Heartlight Story, give this video a like, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your support helps us continue bringing inspiring stories to people everywhere. Now, let's begin. Ethan Brooks was the chief financial officer of a successful technology company in Chicago. At 46, he lived in a beautiful apartment overlooking the city skyline. His suits were expensive, his car was luxurious, and his bank account kept growing every year. To everyone around him, Ethan looked like a man who had won at life. But appearances can hide painful truths. After losing his wife to cancer 5 years earlier, Ethan buried himself in work. Long meetings replaced family dinners. Business trips replaced vacations. His apartment was always quiet, and every evening he returned to an empty home where no one waited to ask how his day had been. Success filled his calendar, but loneliness filled his heart. One rainy Saturday morning, Ethan stopped at a neighborhood grocery store. He planned to grab coffee, fresh fruit, and a few things for the weekend. As he waited near the customer service desk, he noticed a young woman standing with a baby in her arms. She looked exhausted. Dark circles surrounded her eyes, and her clothes were clean but worn. The little baby rested quietly against her shoulder while she spoke softly to the employee behind the counter. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Can I return this formula? I know it's opened, but I need the money for diapers. I'll figure something else out." The employee looked uncomfortable. "I wish I could help," he said gently. "Store policy doesn't allow returns on opened baby formula." The young mother's face fell. She nodded without arguing. She hugged the container tightly, fighting back tears as she prepared to leave. Ethan couldn't stop watching. Something about that moment stayed with him. No parent should ever have to choose between feeding their baby and buying diapers. Without thinking too much, Ethan stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said with a kind smile. "Would you let me pay for your groceries today?" The woman looked surprised. "I couldn't ask you to do that." "You didn't ask," Ethan replied. "I'm offering." Tears filled her eyes. "My name is Sarah," she said quietly. "I'm Ethan." Together, they walked through the store. Sarah picked up diapers, wipes, baby formula, bread, milk, eggs, and a few simple groceries. She apologized several times, carefully choosing the least expensive brands. When they reached the register, Ethan noticed the total wasn't very high. Yet Sarah looked as if someone had handed her the world. Outside the store, Sarah thanked him again. "You have no idea what this means," she said. "I've been working 2 part-time jobs since my husband passed away last year. Every dollar matters." Ethan looked at the sleeping baby. "What's your son's name?" "Noah." Ethan smiled. "He's lucky to have such a strong mom." Sarah shook her head. "Some days, I don't feel strong at all." Those words stayed with Ethan long after they said goodbye. That evening, he couldn't stop thinking about Sarah and Noah. While sitting alone in his apartment, he realized something painful. Helping her had been the happiest part of his entire week. The following Saturday, Ethan returned to the same grocery store. He hoped he might see Sarah again. By chance, she was there. This time she smiled when she recognized him. They talked for a few minutes. Ethan learned that Sarah dreamed of becoming a nurse but had dropped out of school after her husband's sudden death. She wanted to build a better future for Noah but couldn't see a way forward. Instead of simply giving her money, Ethan asked a different question. What would help you become independent? Sarah hesitated. If I could finish nursing school, everything would change. Ethan thought carefully. He had spent years making financial decisions worth millions of dollars. Helping one determined mother finish school suddenly felt like the best investment he could ever make. Over the next few months, Ethan quietly paid Sarah's remaining tuition. He also connected her with affordable childcare through a local community program. Sarah worked harder than ever, studying late into the night after Noah fell asleep. She never wasted the opportunity. At the same time, something unexpected happened to Ethan. His weekends were no longer lonely. Sarah often invited him for simple dinners. Noah learned to recognize Ethan's face and laughed whenever he walked through the door. For the first time in years, Ethan felt like he belonged somewhere. His co-workers noticed the difference. "You seem happier," one of them said. Ethan smiled. "I finally remembered that numbers aren't the only thing that matters." 2 years later, Sarah graduated from nursing school. When her name was called during the ceremony, she searched the audience until she found Ethan. She smiled through tears. After the ceremony, she handed him a small envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. It read, "The day you saw me trying to return baby formula, I thought the world had forgotten me. You didn't just buy groceries. You gave my son a future and reminded me that kindness still exists. I hope one day I can do for someone else what you did for me." Ethan folded the letter carefully. "I think you've already done that," he said. Sarah looked confused. "You gave me something too. A reason to open my heart again." Years passed. Sarah became one of the most respected nurses at her local hospital. She often helped struggling families find community resources because she remembered exactly how it felt to need help. Ethan retired earlier than expected. Instead of chasing another executive position, he created a small charity that provided emergency support for single parents facing financial hardship. The first program they funded supplied baby formula and diapers to families in need. The charity's logo featured a tiny heart inside a baby bottle. Only Ethan and Sarah knew why. One rainy afternoon, Ethan stood in another grocery store and noticed a young father struggling to pay for medicine for his daughter. Before the cashier could say anything, Sarah quietly stepped forward. "I've got this," she said with a warm smile. Ethan watched silently. The kindness had come full circle. One act of compassion had become another, then another, reaching people who would never know how it all began. Sometimes, changing the world doesn't require great wealth, powerful speeches, or extraordinary talent. Sometimes it starts with simply noticing another person's pain and choosing not to walk away. We may never know how far one kind decision can travel or how many lives it can touch. So the next time you have the chance to help someone, don't wait for the perfect moment. Be the reason someone believes in hope again. Because kindness never truly ends. It lives on in every heart that chooses to pass it forward.